Welcome back. We're back here dealing with this compost bin. I have a 5 gallon bucket of chicken manure from the other property. Now, this has been underneath their coop for quite a while. Dug some out, so it's cooled off. It'll still do what we wanted to do, but it's not going to be that hot, nitrogen source that's going to kick this whole pile off. That's right. It's kind of a passive pile, anyways. What we're going to do is we're just going to rake some of this top off, what I've already put in here. And I don't know if you can tell, but as I'm raking it back, look at how dry that is. Now, the crazy thing is that we just had a lot of rain in the last couple of days. And so this whole pile should be soaked all the way through. A little layer of that guy on there, I guess really what happens is let's throw some water on there too. So what happens while it's dry like that is that those leaves all get stacked up on top of themselves, right? Just like they would on a forest floor underneath the canopy of a lot of trees, right? You can walk around, you don't see grass, and you don't really see a whole lot of other things popping up besides trees. And that's because that mulch layer of all those leaves from the trees gets wet on the top, stays dry on the bottom. So the moisture doesn't really get into the ground to pop seeds. But then it starts to decompose as the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. So we're emulating that here. And, it's a step to wet it down when you're doing like a hot compost. I don't really think I have a lot or enough here to get it kicking hot. We'll talk about that. Well, I guess we just talk about it now. So hot composting, thermophilic composting, there's a Berkeley method. Then there's a Dr. Lane Ingham method, which is just a little bit faster, but they're both based off the same idea. And what it is you're cooking it off, making it hot, making it tight. You're transferring it between a state of anaerobic, where there's no air flow getting to it, and so it's heating up. There's no space for the air to get through. Keep it cool, and it's wet, so it starts to heat up. And once it gets up to, about 130, 140, range is ideal. It usually takes about 4, sometimes 5 days. Then, then it kicks off. It heats up after 4 days, and then you just rotate it every other day. You go out there and you turn it, taking that inside of the outside, top, bottom, all the way around, right? Keeping it moist, keeping it within something. You don't have to keep it covered. But anyways, you do that after, that initial 4 or 5 days, or it gets to 130, 140 degrees temperature. You rotate it every day up to 15 days, or up to 15 to 18 days. And then you've got usable compost at that point. The heating up, the thermophilic part of it, where it gets hot, what that does is that kills off any pathogens, any weed seeds that may be in the mix already, and gives you a fresh compost, fresh start. And you can go crazy from there. Like I said, you use it right away. You can brew it, make a tea, and then throw the excess right on top of your beds. Or you can let it sit for a little bit longer, or a little bit, or as long as you want, really. And the longer it sits, the more it goes through its process of breakdown, and really, gets better with age, as they say. But as it's going, you can inoculate it. You can spray other beneficial teas, micro teas, stuff like that. Kind of in its process. and just at any point, really. Let it go. So what I'm trying to do here is something similar, a little experimental, because usually it's in a big wire circle. You know, there's videos on here or on YouTube, older Instagram videos too, that have me out there with my kids flipping these and making these sort of composters. And you just take like a cattle fence, 3x3x3 is a minimum of what you need to get them going. And so that's what I had at the other place. This, I don't have that. However, I built this cool compost bin right here, right? To be able to do the same thing, but right here next to the space. I started saying that it's just a little different, and that's because I'll just keep adding, you know, food scraps and ash and the stuff that I pull off the porch to it. Now, what we're doing here too, utilizing this bin to its best advantage, right, is we build this pile up over here on this side, like we're doing now. We keep adding our boards, raising it up, you know, so we've got it high enough. And then we let it cook. And when it, you know, after them 4 or 5 days, and we just scoop it all down into the lower part of it here and let it start going. And then we can just rotate it back and forth. Boom, 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 boom. Right. And then when we're ready to harvest it, we just scrape it all to one side, and we can get another one going while this one's cooking. After, you know, just give it those few extra days, somewhere to do with it. Yeah, I don't think that it's a bad idea at all, you know. All right, so I'm pretty much out of a nitrogen source at this point. I've got a good mix. Now, typically when you do this, you want to layer it up in thirds. You know, a carbon layer, straw, wood chips, sticks, whatever, right? You want a carbon, then you want like a manure carbon ratio, right? That's kind of that balance, which is just the chicken manure. You know, I use the de-bedding for the chickens and the sheep and goats, throw in the compost and get it that going. You know, leaves from the yard, whatever. And then the rest of your nitrogen source, your green cut grass, your fresher stuff, your vegetables, your whatever, right? So there at that. This mix right here is already a bunch of leaves and cut grass and sticks and that chicken stuff there, right? So we'll just let this go, let it start cooking off. And then I've got a bunch of leaves over on that other side there that I want to come out. And then next time I get back over to the house, I'll grab another 5-gallon bucket of chicken manure and, you know, keep her going. All right, guys.